What happens when America's most composed young star finally loses her calm on live television? And it's Joy Behar who lights the match. It began like any other weekday morning on The View. The studio hummed with its usual electricity. Camera rigs gliding, producers whispering counts, the audience buzzing for the day's guest, Zendaya. She was there to promote her latest film, a deeply personal drama about the cost of being misunderstood in the public eye. When she stepped onto the stage, the applause was thunderous. She waved, her expression poised, a warm radiance surrounding her. Yet behind her controlled smile, there was a quiet fatigue, the kind that only those constantly watched can understand. And the world saw another side of Zendaya. She settled into the couch beside Sunny Hostin, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and finally Joy Behar, who wore that familiar mischievous grin that meant she was ready to test boundaries. The opening banter was light, almost playful. Talk of Zendaya's recent fashion triumphs, her role choices, the praise she'd earned for balancing Hollywood glamour with grounded humility. Then Joy leaned forward, elbows on her knees, voice dipping into that teasing tone that always carried a bite. "Zendaya," she began, "people call you a role model, but some online think fame's made you a bit untouchable. What do you say to the fans who think you've gotten too Hollywood?" A polite laugh rippled through the crowd, uncertain, uneasy. Zendaya's composure didn't crack. She smiled, graceful as ever. "I think people evolve," she said evenly. "Growth doesn't mean losing yourself. I'm still me. I've just learned to protect my peace." Sunny nodded approvingly. Whoopi murmured, "That's right." But Joy pressed on. "Oh, come on," she said, waving a hand. "Let's be real. You're walking red carpets in couture, flying private jets. You don't think that changes a person just a little?" The words hung in the air like smoke. Zendaya's fingers tapped softly on her knee, a rhythm of restraint. "Success lets me do what I love," she answered, voice cool but measured. "It doesn't define who I am." Applause broke out, yet the clapping only fueled Joy's smirk. "That's a sweet line," she said, eyes glinting. "Did your PR team help you come up with it?" A collective gasp swept through the studio. Whoopi shot Joy a warning look. Sunny's eyes widened. The crowd fell into a tense hush. Zendaya blinked once, then twice. Slowly she leaned forward, gaze fixed on Joy. "No," she said quietly. "That came from me." Her tone was calm, but something in it made the room still. An undercurrent of years of biting her tongue, of staying graceful no matter what was thrown her way. The calm before thunder. "I'm used to people assuming things about me," Zendaya continued, voice steady. "But it's disappointing when women, especially those who've opened doors for others, choose to tear someone down instead of lift them up." Murmurs spread through the audience like ripples. Joy raised an eyebrow. "Whoa, hold on, sweetheart," she said, laughing a little too loudly. "Nobody's tearing anyone down. It's just conversation." "This isn't conversation," Zendaya replied, her tone tightening. "This is turning my success into something to be ashamed of." Whoopi interjected softly. "Let's all take a breath, okay? We're just talking." But Joy wasn't finished. "I am just talking," she insisted. "It's called The View for a reason. We share opinions. People think you're out of touch. You preach being grounded while living a life no one can relate to." Zendaya's smile disappeared. "Maybe being relatable isn't about how much money you have," she said, eyes narrowing slightly. "Maybe it's about empathy. And maybe some people forget that when they've spent too long sitting behind a desk judging others." A nervous laugh sputtered from the crowd. Joy leaned back, arms crossed. "Oh, so now I'm the bad guy?" Zendaya's silence cut deeper than words. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the flicker of frustration in her eyes. "I liked you," Joy said finally, shaking her head. "I really did. But fame, it does strange things. You used to seem humble." Zendaya inhaled slowly through her nose, her calm returning, but colder now. "And you used to seem kind," she said softly. The audience gasped. It was instant, like a shockwave rolling through the room. Whoopi's eyes went wide. Sunny covered her mouth. For the first time in the segment, Joy looked truly rattled. "Oh, that's how it is?" Joy shot back. "You come on our show and insult me?" Zendaya's voice stayed level. "No, Joy. I'm just holding you to the same standard you hold everyone else to." Whoopi tried again, firmer this time. "All right, we're going to take a quick break." The theme music swelled, applause flickered half-heartedly, and the lights dimmed for commercial. But the tension didn't fade with the cameras. Joy turned to a producer, her whisper sharp, eyes flashing. Zendaya shifted slightly in her seat, looking toward the floor, hands clasped, jaw tight. Even off-air, the silence was loud. Crew members exchanged glances. Sunny leaned toward Zendaya, murmuring something too soft to catch, perhaps trying to comfort her. Zendaya nodded faintly but said nothing. When the stage manager counted down to return from break, everyone pasted on smiles. But the air felt different, charged, fragile, about to fracture again. And somewhere in the audience, a phone camera light blinked red. Someone was already recording what came next. Because this story wasn't going to stay inside that studio. It was about to explode beyond those walls into headlines, tweets, and endless debate. And no one, not Joy, not Zendaya, not even Whoopi, was ready for what would follow. When the show came back from commercial, the energy in the studio felt brittle, like glass ready to crack. The music faded, the audience clapped on cue, and Whoopi's voice broke through the tension. Welcome back to The View, everybody. We're here with Zendaya, talking about her powerful new film. It sounded routine, but nothing about the atmosphere was normal. Zendaya's polite smile had stiffened. Joy's grin looked carved from stone. The two women sat side by side, not touching, not even glancing at each other. Viewers at home might not have noticed the charged stillness, but those in the room could feel it. Whoopi tried to steer the segment back to safer ground. This movie deals a lot with public perception, she said. How people decide who you are without knowing you. That's something you've faced since you were, 14? Zendaya nodded, grateful for the redirect. Yeah, she said softly. Growing up in this business, people project so much onto you. I've learned to separate noise from truth. Her tone was measured, but under it there was fire. The audience leaned forward, sensing there was more unsaid. Then Joy spoke again, her voice deceptively light. And the truth for you is what? That you're misunderstood. Whoopi's head turned sharply. Sunny blinked. Zendaya froze for a heartbeat, then looked at Joy with a small, incredulous smile. I think everyone's misunderstood sometimes, she said. Especially when they're not afraid to have opinions. Joy gave a quick laugh. Oh, you've got opinions now? Something in Zendaya's expression hardened. I always have, she replied. I just usually don't need to prove them by putting others down. The crowd reacted, a mix of gasps and scattered applause. Sarah Haynes looked at the floor, pretending to read her note card. Okay, ladies, Whoopi interjected with a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Let's remember, it's called The View, not The Feud. The audience laughed, grateful for the release. But Joy wasn't finished. No feud here, she said, waving a hand. I just think it's funny that young celebrities love to preach humility while living like royalty. That's all. Zendaya tilted her head. And I think it's funny when people confuse confidence with arrogance. The line hit hard, sharp, precise. The audience roared with a mixture of shock and delight. Someone in the back shouted, Say that again. Joy's face flushed red. Excuse me, she said, her tone suddenly icy. Zendaya leaned forward slightly. You heard me, she said. You've built a career saying what you think. I'm doing the same. The silence afterward felt like the world had stopped breathing. Cameras captured every twitch, every micro-expression. Whoopi glanced offstage, probably signaling a producer to cut soon. But the conversation had its own momentum now, unstoppable. Sunny Hostin spoke carefully. Maybe this is a good example of generational perspective, she said. Joy, you came up in a time when you had to be loud to be heard. Zendaya represents a generation that uses quiet strength. There's room for both. It was an elegant save, the kind of line that could reset the mood. But Joy ignored it. Quiet strength, she scoffed. No, this is performative. You think you can come on here, lecture me, and look heroic doing it. Zendaya's patience finally cracked. I didn't come here to lecture you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I came here to talk about something meaningful. But if you can't separate your ego from an interview, that's not on me. The audience gasped. Whoopi's eyes went wide. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Joy let out a sharp, humorless laugh. My ego? Honey, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive. And maybe that's the problem, Zendaya replied, her words slow and deliberate. Longevity doesn't mean you stop listening. The crowd erupted, clapping, shouting, a chaos of sound. A stage manager motioned frantically from off-camera. Producers were whispering into earpieces. Whoopi's voice boomed over the noise. All right, let's cool it down before ABC pulls the plug on all of us. Zendaya turned slightly toward the audience, exhaling hard, as if grounding herself. Joy folded her arms, staring straight ahead, jaw tight. When the noise finally settled, Zendaya looked back to Whoopi. This is why people are afraid to be real, she said quietly. You say one honest thing and suddenly you're difficult. You defend yourself and you're arrogant. The studio was silent again, not a tense silence this time, but one heavy with thought. Her voice softened. I respect everyone on this stage. But respect has to go both ways. Whoopi nodded slowly. That's fair, she said. And that's the truth. Joy didn't respond. She looked down at her cards, flipping one over, lips pressed tight. The cameras zoomed out for a wide shot. From the control booth, the director whispered, Hold the frame, hold. Trying to capture the charged tableau. Zendaya's face calm but burning. Joy's expression unreadable. Whoopi the weary peacekeeper. Sunny and Sarah silent witnesses. The segment wrapped, applause rolling awkwardly through the crowd. Zendaya smiled politely again, but her eyes no longer matched the smile. When the cameras cut, a producer rushed forward with a headset. We're going to skip the next topic, she whispered urgently to Whoopi. Just transition out. Zendaya stayed seated. Joy stood up first, pretending to adjust her mic pack, muttering, Some people can't take a joke. Zendaya heard it. She looked up, her voice low but steady. It wasn't a joke, Joy. It was disrespect. Joy turned halfway toward her. You'll learn that in this business, kid, you either toughen up or you quit. Zendaya met her eyes. Maybe I'll change the business instead. That line hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Even off camera, crew members froze, watching history unfold. Whoopi stepped between them with a forced laugh. All right, that's enough fireworks for one morning, ladies. Let's save something for tomorrow's headlines. Too late. Phones were already out, whispers racing through the studio. One production assistant mouthed to another, This is going viral. Joy walked off stage first, muttering under her breath. Zendaya remained seated a moment longer, staring at the empty chair Joy had left behind. Her expression softened, not with anger, but with disappointment. As she stood, Sunny gently touched her arm. You handled yourself, she said quietly. Zendaya gave a faint smile. Sometimes grace looks like standing your ground. The lights dimmed as they prepared for the next pre-recorded segment. In the audience, people were still whispering, eyes wide, phones buzzing with texts. Outside, on social media, clips were already being uploaded. A fan in the third row had captured every second. By the time Zendaya left the building, #Zendaya vs. Joy was trending. The internet was about to take sides, and the storm had only begun to form. By the time Zendaya's car pulled away from ABC Studios, her phone was already vibrating nonstop. Mentions, tags, notifications, a digital hurricane forming in real time. She stared out the tinted window as the Manhattan skyline blurred by, her reflection faint in the glass. Her assistant, Kiana, sat beside her, scrolling through Twitter, eyes wide. Z, you're trending #1, she said softly. Zendaya didn't answer. She'd been through internet storms before, rumors, clickbait, overanalyzed red carpet moments. But this felt different. This wasn't gossip. This was confrontation, raw and unfiltered, broadcast live and already being dissected frame by frame. Back at the View, producers were scrambling. In the control room, phones rang off the hook. ABC's PR team had joined an emergency call, debating how to contain the situation. Someone had leaked an uncut version of the confrontation, the full pre-break argument, complete with off-camera tension. Within an hour, it had millions of views. Zendaya drags Joy Behar on live TV, read one headline. Joy Behar humiliated after trying to shade Zendaya, said another. But not all coverage favored Zendaya. Some outlets twisted the narrative. Zendaya DSRES BCTS veteran host, fans divided. Joy, meanwhile, was in her dressing room, pacing. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts from producers, calls from her agent, dozens of missed notifications. She wasn't used to being the villain of the story. They're blowing this out of proportion, she muttered, tossing her phone onto the couch. It was just an exchange. Her makeup artist glanced up nervously. It looked a little more than that, Joy. Joy stopped pacing, her jaw tightening. You take a 25-year-old actress who's never been told no, you give her millions of followers, and suddenly she thinks she can come for me on my own show? Not happening. She sat down, exhaling sharply, trying to convince herself she didn't care. But deep down she knew. This wasn't going away overnight. Meanwhile, Zendaya's team debated their next move. Her manager suggested staying quiet, letting the storm pass. Her publicist disagreed. If you say nothing, they'll write your story for you, she warned. Zendaya listened silently, then said, I don't want to post a statement. I want to speak like a person, not a brand. Hours later, she opened her phone and recorded a short video. No makeup, no glam, just her sitting by a window, soft daylight streaming in. "I'm seeing a lot online," she began, her voice calm but tired. "I didn't plan to argue with anyone today. But when someone questions your integrity, sometimes silence isn't strength. Sometimes speaking up is." She paused, choosing every word carefully. "I've always respected The View. I grew up watching those women. But I also believe in mutual respect, especially between women. It's okay to disagree, but it's never okay to belittle." She ended with a quiet sigh. "That's all I wanted to say. Thank you to everyone sending love. I see you." Within minutes, her video hit over 1 million views. The internet caught fire again, but this time, the tone had shifted. Fans flooded the comments with support. She handled that with so much grace. Joy owes her an apology. This is why Zendaya is loved, real, grounded, and unapologetically herself. On the other side, Joy's supporters rallied too. A few older viewers defended her blunt style. "Joy's been real since day one," one fan wrote. "Zendaya's generation can't handle tough questions." The divide deepened. Clips of their exchange were remixed into TikToks, edited with dramatic music, slow-motion reactions, and hashtags like #TeamZendaya and #TeamJoy. Late-night hosts joked about it, comedians impersonated it, and think pieces flooded social media, calling it everything from a generational clash to a reflection of how Hollywood eats its own. By evening, The View's producers were in crisis mode. Whoopi, ever the mediator, called Zendaya personally. "Hey, baby," she said gently. "You handled yourself fine. But this thing's got legs. Joy's not backing down." Zendaya hesitated. "I didn't go there to fight. I just got tired of pretending disrespect is okay." "I know," Whoopi said. "But remember, this business doesn't reward sensitivity. It punishes it." Zendaya's silence lingered on the line. Finally, she said, "Then maybe I'll stop playing the game." Whoopi chuckled sadly. "Just don't let them make you bitter. The world's watching now. What you do next matters." At that same moment, Joy was being ushered into a conference call with ABC executives. "Joy," one voice said firmly, "we're getting thousands of complaints. We need a statement, something acknowledging the tone." Joy's response was immediate. "I'm not apologizing for asking a question." "This isn't about the question," the executive replied. "It's about perception. Right now, you look like you went after her personally." Joy laughed bitterly. "You think I'm scared of Twitter mobs?" The call ended with tension unresolved. Joy tossed her earpiece on the table, muttering, "Let them tweet." But the next morning, when she arrived at the studio, the energy was unmistakably different. Crew members avoided eye contact. The audience line outside was filled with homemade signs, some reading, "We stand with Zendaya," others shouting, "Respect Joy." The world had split in two, and both sides were loud. When the cameras rolled that morning, Whoopi opened the show with a carefully worded message. Yesterday's episode sparked a lot of conversation. Here at The View, we believe in debate, but also in respect. We're all learning from this moment. Joy stayed quiet through most of the opening segment, her usual sharp humor replaced with forced smiles. But when Sunny brought up Zendaya's response video, Joy couldn't help herself. "Well," she said, her tone tight, "I guess we've all learned that disagreeing with someone half your age is now considered bullying." The studio went silent again. Whoopi closed her eyes briefly, shaking her head. The internet clipped it instantly. Within minutes, #JoyBeharStillPetty was trending. Later that day, Zendaya's team received a request from ABC for a follow-up interview, a chance to clear the air. Her manager was against it. Her publicist called it a setup. But Zendaya just stared at the email for a long time before saying quietly, "Maybe it's time I finish what she started." The decision was made. Zendaya would return to The View, not to fight, but to reclaim her voice on her own terms. As the sun set over Los Angeles that night, she sat alone in her home office, watching clips of herself from earlier interviews. All the smiles, the politeness, the practiced calm. For the first time, she wondered if being composed had cost her something real. In the distance, her phone buzzed again. Another message from Whoopi. "If you come back, come as yourself. Don't play nice this time." Zendaya stared at the screen, then typed 2 words, "I won't." The next morning, every network, every gossip site, every talk show host had the same headline. Zendaya returns to The View, live tomorrow morning. And everyone knew. It wasn't going to be just another interview. The morning Zendaya returned to The View, the city felt different. Outside the ABC studio, barricades lined the sidewalk as fans gathered with handmade signs, phones raised, waiting for a glimpse of her. News vans parked bumper to bumper. Paparazzi lenses glinted in the cold light. The storm that started with a single tense exchange had now become national news. And today, everyone wanted to see how it would end. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Producers whispered in corners, sound techs adjusted mics with trembling hands, and Whoopi Goldberg sat at the center of the table, calm but watchful. Joy Behar arrived late, sunglasses on, ignoring the murmurs that followed her down the hallway. She'd told herself she wouldn't back down. She'd survived controversy before. But this felt different, heavier. When Zendaya stepped through the backstage door, a hush fell over the control room. She wore a cream-colored suit, elegant, understated, confident. No entourage, no flashy jewelry, just presence. Her eyes were calm, her stride steady. The young woman who'd walked out last week uncertain and angry now looked untouchable. 2 minutes, a stagehand called out. Joy removed her sunglasses, adjusted her blazer, and glanced at Zendaya from across the stage. Their eyes met for a brief second. Neither smiled. The cameras rolled. The opening theme blared. And just like that, the view was live. Whoopi opened the show. "Good morning, everybody," she said, her tone warm but cautious. "We have a very special guest joining us again today, Zendaya. She's back to talk about her film, and, well, maybe a few other things too." The audience erupted in applause. Zendaya smiled graciously and waved, but her eyes stayed focused, grounded. "Welcome back," Whoopi said. "We appreciate you coming." "Thank you for having me," Zendaya replied softly. "It's good to be here." The exchange was polite, almost fragile. Then Whoopi took a slow breath. "Now, last time you were here, things got a little—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Spirited." Laughter rippled through the audience. "But we're all about growth on this show. So, let's start there. Zendaya, how have you been since that episode aired?" Zendaya nodded, her fingers folded calmly in her lap. "It's been enlightening," she said. "The response reminded me how fast things spread, how words echo beyond a moment. But it also showed me how many people feel unseen when they're spoken down to. So I want to say, I didn't come back to argue. I came back to finish the conversation." A murmur of approval rose from the crowd. Whoopi turned slightly toward Joy. "Joy, would you like to respond?" Joy shifted in her seat, forced a smile. "Look, I think everyone got a little carried away last time. I've been on this show for years. We debate, we tease, we push buttons. That's what we do. But I never meant to offend you, Zendaya." Zendaya studied her carefully. "I appreciate that," she said, her tone gentle but unwavering. "But it wasn't just about me. It's about how we treat people when we think we can get away with it. Jokes can hurt. Just talking can belittle." The audience clapped softly. Joy exhaled, leaning back in her chair. "You know, people are too sensitive now," she said. "In my day, if someone said something you didn't like, you shrugged it off." Zendaya leaned forward slightly, voice calm but piercing. "And maybe that's why people stayed silent for so long. Maybe it's time we stopped shrugging it off." Whoopi's eyes flicked between them, half in awe, half in concern. "This is the conversation," she murmured. The crowd was dead silent now, every word hanging heavy in the air. Joy crossed her arms. "So what? I can't ask tough questions anymore." "Ask anything you want," Zendaya said. "But when the question becomes a weapon, that's not journalism. That's ego." Gasps rippled across the audience. Even Whoopi leaned back, eyebrows raised. Joy's face flushed. "Oh, come on." Zendaya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I grew up watching you," she said softly. "You taught me women could be bold. But bold doesn't mean cruel. You can be sharp without cutting someone open." That line hit like thunder. The audience broke into spontaneous applause. Joy blinked rapidly, trying to keep her composure. For the first time, she looked smaller, not humiliated, but human. Whoopi turned toward her gently. "Joy, you've always stood up for strong women. Maybe that's what Zendaya's doing too." Joy looked at Zendaya, and for a fleeting moment, her face softened. "You're right," she said finally. "Maybe I went too far." Zendaya nodded. "It takes strength to admit that." Whoopi smiled, clapping softly. "Ladies, that's growth right there." The audience cheered. The tension that had gripped the room for days seemed to melt into something else. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Joy looked down, then back up, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You're a good kid," she said. Zendaya chuckled quietly. "I had a good teacher." The crowd roared again, laughter, applause, relief. Whoopi leaned in. All right, let's wrap this on a note of peace before Twitter finds something else to fight about. Everyone laughed, even Joy. As the cameras faded to commercial, Zendaya and Joy exchanged a brief handshake. Hesitant but real. The moment was genuine, raw, and perfect. But in that handshake, there was something the audience felt deep down. A quiet reminder that even in the chaos of live TV, growth was still possible. Backstage, producers exhaled in collective relief. That was gold, one whispered. She redeemed the show. But outside the studio, the world was already reacting again. Clips of the exchange flooded social media within minutes. Headlines shifted from Zendaya versus Joy to Zendaya teaches a masterclass in grace. Hashtags trended once more. Hashtag Zendaya returns. Hashtag respect over shade. Hashtag the View reckoning. Fans and critics alike praised her composure, her clarity, her refusal to crumble under pressure. Major outlets called it a generational reset for daytime television. And in living rooms across America, people watched, some nodding in agreement, others reflecting on their own words. The little ways they dismissed, mocked, or belittled someone without realizing it. By nightfall, Zendaya's clip had surpassed 10 million views. Even Joy's statement, short, humble, surprisingly sincere, began circulating online. Sometimes, she said, you meet someone younger who reminds you to listen again. I'm listening. That was all she needed to say. Zendaya watched the replay from her hotel room, sitting by the window as the city lights flickered outside. She didn't smile. She just breathed a long, steady breath of release. Her phone buzzed with a message from Whoopi. You changed the tone. Proud of you. She typed back. Thank you. Maybe next time, it'll just be about the art. Whoopi replied with a single word. Maybe. Zendaya looked out over the skyline, her reflection merging with the glass, calm, strong, unshaken. She knew this moment would follow her, but for once she didn't mind. It wasn't scandal anymore. It was legacy. Because sometimes the loudest revolution doesn't come from shouting. It comes from standing tall and speaking truth with grace. And for millions watching around the world, that morning on The View wasn't just television. It was a reminder that dignity, even under fire, still wins. So what do you think? Did Zendaya do the right thing standing her ground? Or should she have stayed silent? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Talk Narrative for more explosive and emotional moments just like this one.